Hi, I'm Renee Devereaux with the Club for Creative Expression, and today I have the pleasure of introducing one of my dear friends, Jill Panage. She and I were introduced by a mutual friend because we have a love for ballroom dancing. Well, she had just moved to Laguna Woods. She had lived in Southern California for many years, but originally from New York. And so welcome. Thank you for joining me, Joe.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And you know, it seemed that, as we were talking earlier, we had ballroom dancing, or we have ballroom dancing in common. And then we found out that we were both still working. Mm-hmm. We love our work. We are both a type of therapists. And we really didn't bond until...
Until I heard you mention something about jacks to someone. You sat behind me at the dance, and I perked up and I said, "Jacks, I have jacks. Let's play jacks."
Yes.
And we bonded over jacks.
We did, just like two little girls.
Yeah.
And then it has developed into a real friendship because we are passionate about our work.
Mm-hmm. We are.
And so one of my questions to you is, how did you get to your profession?
Oh, I started late in life. At age 57, I decided I wanted to volunteer at UCLA in the geriatric area.
Okay.
And I needed some kind of a master's in psychology in order to do that. Mm-hmm. So I signed up at school, and I signed up for a master's in psychology, clinical psychology. And as I was going through the program, I decided, well, why not become a therapist? Because I was always doing therapy on my friends anyway.
You're the wise woman.
Right. And that's how I got into it.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, that's really interesting. You know, for me, it was a long time coming. It was an evolution, because I started out feeling really happy when I helped people. And the first career, well, no, my first career, I'm an accountant, but my first real career that I loved was nutrition, you know. And I wanted to help people feel better and look better. So that evolved into more, because I realized that people had other issues. It wasn't just about nutrition. Mm-hmm. It was more. And so then I became a therapist. Then I became a counselor, and on and on. And now, well, then I discovered hypnosis, hypnotherapy. Some people are resistant to it, but I find that putting people into an altered state is really beneficial, because if you get the conscious mind out of the way, you can access parts of yourself that you block. Have you found a tool or something to help you with your patients?
Well, I would call it, we all use certain tools to get through life. Mm-hmm. And they're protective tools.
Yes, absolutely.
Some of them start when we are infants, and they're primitive ones.
Correct.
And they don't always serve us well in life. And then there are the adult protective measures that we can use. So if someone is denying or putting aside a part of themselves, their life, things that they don't want to remember, they just gloss over it, it's not a healthy thing.
No.
So very slowly to go back and even maybe role play with people and find out where they got their stories from, and rework their stories. There is a whole theory, it's called narrative theory in psychology, that's about rewriting your story. Which is very interesting. So that could be used.
Right. I love that concept, actually, because you know, if a person changes their perspective on what has occurred, or just to make a different story rather than the one you've been living, and you know, for me, it is a matter of freedom. It's about being able to express who you are, and with all the baggage or what you talked about, you know, being there and we go into denial. So talk a little more about that.
Well, it's interesting because I asked you, we were together recently, and I asked you if in hypnotherapy you're all of a sudden throwing a door open to someone who's had that door closed their whole lives because it's not in their consciousness, it's in that subconscious somewhere. And I said, then what do you do? Because I feel strongly that you have to give people tools.
Correct.
First, and then open doors, and then they have a different way of behaving.
Exactly, and that is the right way of doing it.
Right.
You know, that they have the tools to be able to reinterpret what happened. So, you know, for me, the focus is just being able to reinterpret what occurred. That it's there, it's in the past, it's no longer alive and, you know, capable of injuring you in present time. You see, so it's something from there, and there may be a reason for it. You know, people's perceptions change. Parents or whoever, you know, the offender might have been, their perception might have been just different.
Everybody perceives things differently. So
exactly.
What do you do with someone who comes to you with deep-seated anger and they're acting out? And acting out is definitely a maneuver that you learn to do as a child.
Yeah.
You act out when you can't express things and you don't know your feelings. So what do you do with someone like that? Do you put them under hypnosis quickly, or?
Well, we talk about it first because we need to be able to identify what the trigger is. If there was something from the past that now is just a trigger, you know, that they get lit up when they hear the same phrase or somebody behaves in the same manner, then it's just an old age thing. And it's like a person may be having an issue with their husband, but that first offense was the father or the brother. And so I say, you know, it's like you're angry at the wrong man.
Well, it's true in life. As we age, as we become adults, we tend to feel comfortable at home. Home is a place that you were used to as a child. It could be a horrible home. It could be a frightening home. It could be an abusive home.
Correct.
And you will go toward that. As far as choosing a partner or friends like that.
Yes, you keep repeating.
You want to work it out.
Yeah.
You always want to work it out.
Yeah.
And not until you get, you're right, back to where it starts from.
Exactly.
Can you possibly begin to look at your life differently and your needs differently and be aware of that.
Because I've seen, you know, every human wants to understand, you know, what happens, what is the dynamic, but often they don't get to that because they really didn't understand their emotions at 5 or 10 or whatever.
Well, of course not.
You see, and so now to understand as an adult what occurred or what transpired as a child, well, it's really rather impossible. It's a huge expectation that people can have on themselves as an adult, you know, because you don't feel the same. You're not the same person.
Right.
You see, and so to have them go back into a state where they will remember, you know, that situation, and now as an adult see the child's response, you know, ultimately we come down to loving ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, because we understand the child, and of course that child felt whatever. And I think our hearts open in those moments. Don't you agree?
Yes, but in therapy, it's doing therapy with people, and you talk about the child. There are so many people who are resistant to that.
Oh,
what do you
of
mean,
course.
the child within?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of therapy.
It's huge.
The child within. Guilt stems from so many things you did as a child, and they make absolutely no sense as an adult. but you did it as a child, and it is so with you forever.
I know.
Unless you can go back and be that child. Play act with someone who's trained, who can do it with you, and be the 3-year-old who's so angry at a sibling that by accident you spill hot coffee on the sibling, okay? And to then discuss it and say, well, what did you know as a 3-year-old? Did you know that coffee burns? Did you know that it was hot? You know, did you know what you were doing? And you can really ease someone's guilt tremendously when you take them back and say, no, you're not 20. Don't answer me as you are today. Respond as a 3-year-old you did.
Precisely.
Right.
You see, because again, you know, seeing life from an adult or mature or an older person's perspective and literally judging that behavior of a child is just so unfair.
Yes, well, judging anything is unfair.
Well, it just
being judgmental. I'm queen of being judgmental of myself, but I have healed myself with using a sense of humor. It is the worst thing we can do to ourselves. It is so unfair.
And that's why I say learning to love ourselves is first and foremost, because until we release that self-punishment or that guilt or that critical aspect or critical view of ourselves, oh my goodness. I mean, I know I have in the past, not anymore, and I have certainly heard some of my clients talk about themselves in ways they would never speak to anyone. You know, not in the tone, not in those words, but they can say it to themselves. The things I have said to myself.
Right.
It's like, oh, not acceptable.
Right, but I wonder if they're saying it to themselves or the recording in their head that someone had said to them and convinced them of when they were young.
And that is the perfection of the work, of your work.
Right.
Exactly, to be able to differentiate. Is it really something that this person is thinking about themselves, or is it really just a recording? Was it something that brother, mother, father, whoever, somebody in authority said, or even a friend, you know? But when you're vulnerable and you hear certain comments, they're in there for life.
Yes, and you even choose people who will put you in that same position again. You know, I'm a marriage family therapist, and I do a lot of marital counseling. And it is fascinating to watch people recreate whatever was horrible in their lives all over again. And that's where hypnotism, psychotherapy, nutrition, making yourself a whole person is so important, and it's never too late.
And you see, and this is what I've loved my audience to hear, that it's never too late to achieve happiness, to have the rewarding life that one deserves. Just by coming into by being born on earth, I believe.
Well, I think we're born that way, and then life happens.
And we form all kinds of opinions and so forth. And we literally, what I always say about the subconscious is like what's in the subconscious either runs your life and possibly ruins your life, because what landed there, unless you do an awful lot of work, and again, hypnotherapy is important for that, to be able to change the thought, because to do, you know, to correct that kind of thought from a conscious mind, well, what do you think?
Well, I'm supposed to say, yes, we can change thoughts. And you can rewire the brain. That has been, we won't go into brain work, but they say you can do that.
It's a lot of discipline.
My feeling is, though, any trauma, any memory that's with you is not just in your mind.
Correct.
You have physically experienced this, and it is in your body.
Exactly.
And so
see.
I don't know if you can change. I do know that you can become aware of the trigger that sets off something for
Correct.
you, aware of what you're getting ready to say, and then take that second and turn it around.
Right. It's learning really to control the emotions,
Yes.
which I think is the biggest challenge as a human being. You know, to learn to know what triggers you, what responses you automatically have, because I do also believe in the body memory. You see, and how I got to that was through my clients wanting so much to lose weight or to, change their eating habits, and it just wasn't happening. You see, because they had, I call it programming. Kind of programmed themselves into certain beliefs about food or about what people in her family or their families thought about food or how they should be eating. And it takes a lot to come from just discipline to change those beliefs or bodily reactions. And again, this is why I do believe that with every illness there is an emotional component.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as far as wanting to lose weight or whatever, that is another defense.
Yes.
It's like denial, this, that. There are many defenses. Another one is gaining weight. Gaining weight in our society keeps someone at bay.
Yes.
If you're married and you don't want to, enjoy sex with your husband, or you don't enjoy sex with your husband, you just gain 10 pounds.
Exactly.
Hello.
Yes, because
If that doesn't work, gain more.
Exactly, because it turns off
Right,
the man.
it does.
Yeah.
And so many of us, I remember my grandmother, you have to eat everything. And of course it was great till you ate everything. And everybody would talk about the children in China who were starving.
Oh,
So you have to finish everything on your plate.
my gosh,
And
every client of mine has always said that.
I still do that. I still do that. I make sure I have very little food at home because I still do that.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like abundance. I like lots of food and to have the freedom of choice.
Yes.
Because I have a belief that, it's like if I eat the right kind of food, the quality food that nourishes my body, I can eat everything I want. So there's nothing that I don't allow in my home. Everything is allowed. Chocolate, cookies, ice cream, whatever. And because I want to have, I definitely, again, it's about freedom and the permission to choose. You see?
My freedom is in the supermarket. That's where I get to choose. Once it's home,
it's a different
it's
story.
a free-for-all.
Well, you see, but that's part of being conscious.
Right.
What can you handle? How do you navigate life that makes you comfortable with yourself and that you are happy with?
Yes.
You see, because that's the bottom line.
Right.
What works for you?
Right.
It's irrelevant what works for somebody else who doesn't. It's the individual here.
I facilitate a cancer support group.
Yes, you do.
And nutrition is so important to so many of them. And I myself had gone through cancer, and I had this big, thick book on what to eat, what pills to take, whatever, to make yourself healthy.
Yeah.
And we often laugh in there. There are people who go on donut diets and do very well, and they've been cancer-free for 10 years. And there are the others who are so careful about everything.
Oh, yes. I'm working with one right now who has breast cancer. And oh my gosh, I mean, she has every piece of equipment that will tell her how many calories, how, each food, what's the composition. And she is so incredibly rigid about what she does every day and the supplements she takes and so forth, that I feel it works against her. It's too restrictive and too, oh my gosh, she's tyrannical with herself.
Really?
You see? So it's, I don't know, it has to be
It's an
a
individual
flow.
choice.
Yeah.
It's an individual choice.
It is an individual choice.
I mean, I myself had been on I just had a great way of eating. It was not a diet, it was a great way of eating. I didn't have sugar, I didn't eat bread for almost 20 years.
Really?
And yes, dancing every night. I was really trim and fit and everything.
Well, you are.
And I got colon cancer, and I knew the proper foods to eat to prevent that. I did all of it. I had the fiber, I did the whole thing. So after I went through treatment, I went on a donut and bagel binge. And I stayed on that until fairly recently when I said enough of the sugar, finally. Because there's such a difference when you give up sugar.
Yes, there is.
Oh, you feel so much more energetic.
Of course.
So much better.
So much better, period.
Right, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, again, back to the point about the food that you were eating because you were working on yourself with cancer. And so that is, it's really important. But I believe that the source of cancer, and I definitely learned that, that the source of cancer often has little to do with what you're eating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Genetics is tremendous.
And just the mindset.
I think so too. I think, well, certainly getting through cancer and the treatments, being positive, having a positive attitude,
right?
Seeing cancer as an opportunity instead of as an enemy.
Exactly.
Because it opens your eyes up to different things and you see the world differently. You have an appreciation of things that you never appreciated before. Watching the sunrise every day.
Oh, yeah.
Just starting and be there for a new day became an amazing part of my life.
Yeah.
And stayed that way.
We become, I know for myself, when I went through the experience, I became so incredibly grateful.
Yes.
Oh my God, because the beauty of life and everything it offers, and here, you're thinking, am I going to not be here to enjoy this?
Right.
It's a devastating thought.
Yes. Gratitude is wonderful.
Gratitude, oh my goodness.
And then the other thing, of course, in all cancer books is it's not good to be stressed out. So mindfulness meditation, might I say, is fabulous to lower your stress levels.
Right.
And I forgot where I was going to go with that. So I'm going to leave that.
Okay.
I'm just going to dangle that.
That's all right, because I really want to ask you before we quit, or we stop, about grief. Because I'd like for you to talk to us a little bit about the grief, that it's not just bereavement, it's not just when someone dies.
Bereavement and grief are kind of the same things.
Right.
Really, I became a grief specialist mainly because I was dealing with older people and losses.
Right.
And so grief is about losing a dog. It's about losing your muscle tone.
Exactly.
It's about losing a breast or a leg.
Exactly. Oh, so
or a spouse or a friend.
That's what I meant.
Every
that
day.
It isn't just a death of someone you love.
No.
It's grief in every sense of the word.
Right. Grief for the world, the way the world is. You sit and you watch the news and you just worry what has happened, and that's grief. It's a loss of your belief that the world is rosy.
Yes. It's like there is no more Santa Claus.
Right.
There is no Santa Claus.
There is no resolution. There is no resolve to grief. It doesn't ever end.
Exactly.
What it does is it lessens through the time and the stages. Kubler-Ross has these 5 grief stages. And denial is the first stage, and she numbered them, but really they can occur at any time. There's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining. God, if you'll just make yesterday not happen again. So So I wake up in the morning and yesterday doesn't exist. We start again.
We start over.
I'll be so good, God. You know, that's bargaining.
We bargain. We bargain. Yes,
and
we
there's
do.
depression when you realize bargaining is not working. And then there's finally acceptance.
Right.
But you always remember certain things, triggers, as the years go by that remind you of those people, and you internalize.
It will
those
always
people.
live. It will always live within.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even, you know, if we're talking about losing parts of your body or losing your looks as we age or whatever, we always have a picture in our head of how fabulous we once looked.
Right. But you know, my response to that is we have to remember how fabulous we felt once, and actually I feel more fabulous now than I did when I was what? You know, definitely going through cancer, definitely going through my divorces, and you know, so it's like life has never been so good.
Yes, yes.
And so true. That's, you know, there's things that we may not like, but the fact remains that we are alive. Joe, it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so
much.
I've enjoyed my time.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with me some of our perspective on what the individual and our growth potential is, and what is available to each one of us in this world. So, Joe Panich, Renee Davero, and thank you so much for being with us today.